Hello, everyone. I'm Julie Liegl, Chief Marketing Officer here at Slack, and I want to be the first to officially welcome you to Frontiers in 2020. Frontiers started 4 years ago with 1,100 people in San Francisco, and this year we have over 12,000 people joining us from around the world virtually in this all-new format for all of us. But from the very beginning, Frontiers has been about the future of work, digital transformation, and never has that been more important than it is this year, where we're all looking for new ways to work. And we've seen our thousands of customers turn to Slack to keep their customers and their partners and their employees more connected and more engaged. We're very excited about the 2 days of content we have to talk about that, with over 33 breakout sessions, 3 major keynotes, and lots of chances to get your questions answered, hear from customers, and talk to partners. So, I am excited to pass us over to our first keynote, led by our CEO, Stuart Butterfield. Don't forget to join us on social with the hashtag #SlackFrontiers. And thank you again so much for joining us. Off to Stuart.
Good morning and welcome. I'm glad you joined us, or you're not here and I'm not there. And it's a little weird not being here with you or having you here with us. In fact, I'm going to break the fourth wall just for a second and give you a sense of what it's like over here right now. It's a pretty good illustration of the changes that we've gone through over the last little while, figuring out different ways of doing the same thing. I suspect many of you had the same experience that we had. In the beginning, there's a lot of chaos and a lot of scrambling. There's a lot of things for us to figure out. We had new employees starting, and we had to figure out what's remote onboarding look like. How do they get laptops? How do we do recruiting? How do we do sales in this new world where we can't meet people face to face? A lot of adrenaline. I think there's a lot of exhilaration in the early days because we had this giant surge in usage. And eventually we found a rhythm. And today, I guess some things are probably better. I personally prefer not having quite as much business travel. And some things are not quite as good yet. And I know that many of you are facing some of the same challenges that we are. There's a lot of uncertainty. There is uncertainty about when offices will reopen, but what kind of offices we reopen to. And there's burnout among some of the employees with too small apartments or with children to care for and not the same level of support in the environment. There's also real concerns about connection and culture and what kind of organizations we are in this new world. But from talking to many of our customers and our partners, so many of you, I know you share a belief that there are enormous new opportunities right now. It's sometimes the same thing, but better. And we're looking a lot at our internal processes and how things get done. One great example is just fewer meetings and have agendas for all the meetings. And where possible, do them audio only so people can walk around and get some freedom. At the other end of the spectrum, there's changes that are more transformative. In fact, we started a new organization called the Future Forum. And it's designed to reimagine management. How do we manage? How do we report on businesses? What kind of organizational structures make sense? And some, if you look at that spectrum from the same thing but better to completely transformative, there are some that are kind of in the middle. And I want to pull back the curtain on something that we're working on right now. But first, I just want to say that we're struggling to find ways to take processes that have to be synchronous today. In other words, we all have to do them at the same time and make those asynchronous. And these stories are a pretty good example. So you can imagine that the daily stand-up meeting that happens from 9 to 9:15 every day, rather than having everyone stop at 9 and sit there for the whole 15 minutes, even if they only really had 3 minutes worth of participation in the meeting, I can record my update at 8:53 and I can watch yours at 10:51 when it's convenient for me. And that gives a lot more flexibility. It frees people up. Because I think we're all in this position now where there's a lot of burnout that's just coming from being on video conferences all day, every single day.
Hey everybody, just wanted to give you an update on where we are with all the keynotes. I've shipped the 7th or 8th or whatever it is revision of the script to Stuart. I don't know if he's looked at it since he hasn't really looked at the others, but incorporated what he's described as his latest thinking. I'm really not sure if we're going to end up with an actual script when we get in front of the cameras, or if he's just going to say what he wants to say per usual, but I'm sure it will be great.
Hi, sorry I couldn't make the meeting earlier. saw the latest script. Everything's looking good. Just want to let everyone know I am going to share it with Tamar during the meeting I'm going to next, and I'll post any feedback from that in the channel. Other than that, keep it up, and really excited to see the final product.
So looking for ideas we can take that are familiar to you from regular life as in the consumer world and bring them into the enterprises. So you can look forward to that. Thinking more about this transformative ones, a great way to think about them comes from one of my favorite essays. It's written in 2015 called Office Messaging and Verbs by Benedict Evans. And I'm just going to read a little section of it because I think it's a great way of encapsulating a very important idea. So he says, we went from typing expense forms with carbon copies, and talking about a typewriter, to entering them into a Word doc version of the form, to a dedicated Windows app that looked just like the form, to a web page that looked just like the form. And then suddenly someone worked out that maybe you should just take a photo of the receipt. It takes time, but sooner or later, we stop replicating the old methods with the new tools and find new methods to fit the new tools. So I think that's a great example, first of all, because it's familiar to everyone. Expense reports and approvals are something that most of us have to do. And it's an example of a workflow. And in a sense, everything we do around the office is a workflow. I'll get into that a little bit more in a moment. But when we think about those, if there's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, all the way to step 11, sometimes the task is going to be improving step 2 and step 3, making them a little bit better. And sometimes it's going to be just skipping, if we can, from step 1 to step 11, or at least from step 2 to step 10. So an example of that happening in real life that might be familiar to you is the way that we've moved, sometimes at least, from presentation software to review important business data to dashboards. And you can think about the times in your life where you or someone you love has had to screenshot a chart in a spreadsheet app and paste it into a presentation and then email that presentation to people. Now, hopefully that's not the way the future looks, and we're starting to see it change already. And the movement is skipping out all of those steps and going right to live dashboards that are powered by new software tools. Those new software tools, in this case for dashboards, are part of just this wave of software that has been increasing for the last couple decades. So if you've had a career that spanned a couple decades, you can imagine in the year 2000, the number of different software tools you encountered or used. What is it today? 10x, 100x. That proliferation is good generally. Obviously, we're fans of software. We're trying to sell software. But the reason I say the proliferation is good is that the software is automating something for people, or it's taking away a task that we find menial, or it's replacing us, automating something that we're just not good at. Computers are a lot better at doing arithmetic quickly. They're a lot better at remembering things. So no matter how you look at it, whether that's like the dollars spent per employee per year on software by enterprises, whether that's the minutes you spend each day using software, the number of different vendors, all the charts look the same. They're all just kind of up and to the right. And of course, again, all of that is great. We're big fans of software. Some of that proliferation is driven by moving up the stack in some kind of sense, and moving from things that 10 years ago was easy for us to automate to whatever the frontier is. And there's always a frontier in what's automatable, and whatever is automatable will eventually get automated. That frontier is pushing harder and harder kind of into the messier parts of what we do at work. So I mentioned earlier that you can imagine everything we do at work as a workflow. And I don't mean workflow with a capital W, like our workflow builder or any other software maker's workflows. I mean just the actual process of things that we do. And you can actually lay them out on a spectrum, this continuum. At one end, you have machines talking to machines, and the other end, you have humans talking to humans. One end is fully automated decision-making for relatively simple decisions, and it's systems of record for tracking and reporting. The other end is just human conversation, and that's always been Slack's strength. Slack, as a channel-based messaging platform, does a great job there because channels make the messy work of people working with other people so much easier. And when you lay these things out on this spectrum, on this continuum, it makes a lot of the opportunities more obvious, because machines talking to machines on one side, humans talking to humans on the other, consider the middle. And that's the realm where software enters into human decision-making. And this is what I said was messy. And in some sense, all software ultimately enters into human decision-making, because if it didn't, what would be the point of buying it? But there's these intersections of tools that are increasingly common in the way that we work. So here's one example. You have a recruiter, and she gets the email from DocuSign that says the candidate signed the offer letter. So great. Now think, OK, I'm going to go to the applicant tracking software and update that to say the candidate accepted it. And then I'm going to go to the HR software and update that. And then I'm going to go manually tell the hiring manager and the other stakeholders that the candidate has accepted. It's a lot of work there that's kind of like a robot. You're filling in these gaps. And these productivity gaps are everywhere. Whenever we refine them, we think there are opportunities for real transformative improvements. If you can make it cheap enough, you can make it easy enough, if you can make it convenient enough, everything changes. Because there's these magic curves, these magic points where people change their behavior in really fundamental ways. And probably my favorite example, because it's so vivid, is think about how many people hired cars to drive them somewhere in exchange for money 20 years ago, and think about how many there are today. It's 5x, it's 10x, it's something like that. The reason we saw that happen is the ride-hailing apps made it so much more convenient to do that. There was so much more liquidity. There were so many more opportunities. You just had to press a button on your phone that people changed their behavior. And that change in behavior is leading to like a re-layout, a complete transformation of the physical built environment of these cities. So think about that as a magic threshold of convenience. We think we can discover some of those in the platform. And that's why we're investing a lot right now into the next generation of our platform. I don't have a better name for it yet than that. But later today, Cal and Steve are going to be talking about Slack's vision for the event-driven enterprise. And event-driven enterprise might sound a little fancy, but it's always been what our platform is about. You have these events on the human side, the decisions, the discussions that you're making, the things that you resolve that you want to do. And some of them you can just do right inside of Slack. You can send the build, you can create a new ticket, you can update the opportunity in your CRM. And some things are events that are coming from the systems that you already have, and you want to push those into the place where the conversations are happening. And that might be a purchase order was submitted, or a customer filled out a contact form, or there was a chargeback in your e-commerce site. All of those events flowing back and forth create the opportunity for us and for you to have a lightweight, low-cost fabric for systems integration, to tie all these tools and all these systems together. And that allows you to get more out of all of your software. Some of you will have heard this pitch from us that we want to be 1 or 2% of your software budget. That's a multiplier on the value of the other 98 or 99%. That's what we mean. Because right now there are a lot of us still behaving as mindless robots, not because there's anything wrong with us, but because we haven't figured out how to fill those productivity gaps between two parts, 2 bits of software, or 3 bits of software, 4 bits of software. And we want to help fill that gap. If we're able to do that, we can give teams the freedom and the power to do the things that only humans can do, to explore and to create, to advocate, persuade, to discuss, debate, decide, all the messy, wonderful work of innovation and execution that pushes us to new frontiers. And I know, like all of you, if we only have a finite amount of human intelligence and creativity, we want to put it where it matters. All right, so the next few days are pretty packed, so buckle up. And next up, you're going to be hearing from Tamar, who I believe has another little sneak peek behind the curtain for you as well.
Thank you, Stuart. Hi, I'm Tamar Yehoshua, Slack's Chief Product Officer. This is a very different frontiers than previous years. We've all had to go through a tremendous rush to transform and find better productivity while learning to work remotely. And we at Slack went through the same challenges that so many of you did. With this sudden and seemingly never-ending shift to remote work, we've seen an increase in people turning to Slack to help them make a successful transition. I thought I'd share a bit of our journey and what we learned and hope that it may be helpful for you and your teams. In early March, like many of you, we moved our entire company to be fully remote within just a couple of days. We were already accustomed to getting our everyday work done in Slack channels, so we all naturally turned to Slack as our new digital headquarters. On top of the sudden move to remote working, our product organization also had a major release plan for a few weeks after the change, the release of our simpler, more organized Slack UI. This had been in the works for many months, and all of a sudden we were faced with the question of whether we should go forward with the release or not. With everything going on, could we still execute on the plan? Well, I'm happy to say that we blazed forward, and we actually accelerated the release for new teams coming to Slack for the first time, because we knew that the changes would help these new users. We were able to do this because of the way we use channels in Slack. Our communication and systems were already so streamlined that the move to remote work didn't slow us down. We didn't back down from our goals and objectives. Instead, we found we were able to innovate just as fast, in this case, even faster than before. I've heard from some other companies that they weren't able to keep their momentum. They put a freeze on product releases and they backed away from some of their objectives because they didn't have a place like Slack where everyone could go to stay aligned on the work in flight. This transition hasn't been easy for a lot of organizations. And as Stuart said, old ways of working are not coming back. So this is the perfect time to adapt to a new way of working, to become more agile and flexible and ready for anything. A few months into the pandemic, we conducted a survey of Slack users to better understand how they were coping with the shift to remote work. The results were impressive. Our customers told us that on average, they're 31% more productive due directly to their use of Slack. They also say that they've cut their use of email on average by 45%, and they're having 21% fewer meetings. We've seen that organizations are using this period to choose a better way of working by moving all of their communications to Slack. We hear from customers that they're working together more openly, are pushing decision-making down in the organization, and are achieving transparency and agility that was missing before. In addition, they're able to be more flexible and improve collaboration for people across teams, geographies, and life circumstances. What we're going to share with you next and throughout Frontiers today and tomorrow are customer-inspired stories of how you can make Slack the all-digital HQ that organizes all of your conversations internally and externally. We're all adapting to this new playing field, and for us at Slack, it's been all about staying connected to people in our internal channels, strengthening connections with our partners and customers in Slack Connect external channels, and finding new ways to connect even more of our systems in Slack for a world that's more virtual than ever before. For those of you new to Slack, Slack is a channel-based messaging platform. As Stuart said, channels make the messy work of people working with people so much easier. A big advantage of channels is taking communications out of siloed inboxes and making it easier to discover information you need to get your work done. At Slack, we use channels for every major project: team communication, org-wide announcements, updates on top projects, and much more, which means you know exactly where to go for the kind of information you're looking for. For example, every company objective has its own channel where updates are posted regularly. Whenever I need to, I can quickly get up to speed on our latest results by visiting the channel for each top objective. And anyone in the company can do this. This is just one of the many ways that Slack makes it easy for us to get all the latest and best information we need in real time. As the CIO of TD Ameritrade, Vijay Sankaran recognizes, productive teamwork in channels is more than just messaging. It's bringing together people with all other key services and systems, so engage teams to do their best work with a common understanding and purpose. Channels are effective because they're the place where teams connect with their organization's people, partners, and systems. Work is more productive in channels. Let's take a deeper look at each of these. Channels allow you to build an open culture where you can engage and connect with people to get work done. This is critical because research shows that engagement is now an even bigger issue in the workplace. In Slack's recent global survey of knowledge workers, their top concern about remote work, after, of course, a reliable Wi-Fi connection, is staying connected and engaged with their teams. The biggest challenges include building relationships with colleagues, increased feelings of isolation or loneliness, and not being aware of what others are working on. This is why having a tool where people engage to build an open culture is so important. An example that showcases the engagement you see on Slack is from a Fortune 100 retailer who had 10,000 users on Slack, but also deployed another messaging product to many more of their employees. And while there were just 1/6 as many Slack users, those users did 200 times the amount of channel-based messaging versus the other product. The degree to which the employees were engaged on Slack so they could realize the benefits of channels convinced the company to deploy Slack to the entire organization. And we've seen with our customers that email is not a way to build or maintain engagement in their organizations. When email was invented nearly 50 years ago, it followed the mode of that era's communication by isolating information. You can only see the conversations you've been included on. The world today is pretty different from the world when Simon and Garfunkel topped the charts. For today's fast-paced collaboration across distributed teams, email is no longer the right tool. Our customers have made this clear in our engagement surveys taken during the work-from-home period, saying they prefer Slack over email for many common work purposes, such as employee onboarding, solving urgent problems, delegating responsibilities to a team member, and project planning. And more than 80% report that Slack helps their team stay more connected and communicate better. And the majority also say it's improved the team's culture and made it more transparent. Intuit provides a great example. Slack initially rolled out at Intuit as part of an internal campaign called Work Better Together. At a time when siloed tools were a roadblock to cross-group collaboration, Intuit wanted to bring everyone together in a single tool. Slack is now used by every division and, in their words, is helping teams across the globe solve problems much faster, like they're in the same room. You may have heard that in July, Slack acquired a startup called Rimeto, which had created the modern company directory. Why did we do that? Because staying connected is so critical. During the pandemic, so many new hires are being onboarded and new workplace relationships being formed without ever meeting in person. Over a quarter of Slack's product organization has joined since the pandemic pushed us to be fully remote. It's nearly a third of the organization that I've never met in person. And our only way of working together from the initial hiring interviews through today has been all virtual and in Slack itself. With Rimeto, I can see at a glance every employee's skills and experience, who has joined recently, who has an upcoming start date, who has an anniversary or birthday, who is on leave, who's returning from leave, and all of this rich data is searchable. With the addition of Rimeto to Slack, we believe we can combine engagement and channels with a reimagined company directory to give you a powerful cultural tool to strengthen employee ties to each other and to their work. When used together, Slack and Rimeto give your employees a better and easier way to work. This is why enterprises like Expedia Group had already chosen both Rimeto and Slack to make it easy for their teams to share information and work together. If you want to learn more about Rimeto, please join our session tomorrow with two of the Rimeto co-founders, Ted Zagat and Maxwell Heyman, or simply go to slack.com/Rimeto. Along with employee engagement, we know a top concern for decision makers today is the cost and ROI of their organization's investments. We've seen from external studies that companies whose employees are using Slack channels report better productivity. An IDC study shows companies with engaged users in Slack channels report better productivity and outcomes across their business, including in customer-facing human resource and product development teams. And a recent Forrester analysis of the total economic impact of Slack showed that the team surveyed reported more than a 330% return on their Slack investment during a 3-year timeframe. We know how important it is to continue to make it easier for customers to see the value they're getting from Slack. This is especially important during the global pandemic. Budgets are tighter, and leaders are looking for hard ROI. To support this need, we're introducing a set of 4 analytics capabilities that reveal the depth of Slack use in an organization and where users are engaging the most. For example, we'll soon release an analytics API that will allow enterprise grid customers to integrate Slack engagement data into their business reporting tools. This will allow them to measure adoption and trends, compare it with other tools in their environment, and to get more value out of Slack. To learn more about these capabilities, we encourage you to join our session tomorrow, Use Analytics to Increase Slack Maturity and Adoption, which includes the Director of People Analytics from our customer, TIPCO. As Stuart mentioned earlier, Slack is focused on automating work. Digital transformation or automating workflows is a top priority for many of you. The Workflow Builder is a key tool that we have seen drive transformation with our customers. What's unique about the Workflow Builder is that it lets anyone in an organization build customized processes in Slack to meet their individual business needs. For example, in just a few minutes, anyone can create workflows to onboard new team members, run a virtual stand-up meeting, or moderate a live Q&A session. Building a workflow is simple. Anyone can build a welcome flow for a new hire from an existing template or from scratch, all without writing a single line of code. Today, there's an incredible network of automation builders, and growth of this network has been accelerating since the start of the pandemic. Most of these builders are non-technical team members, and together they've built hundreds of thousands of workflows that have already been used more than 25 million times. A great example of streamlined employee onboarding comes from DocuSign. Their global operations and technology services team has added hundreds of employees this year. That's a lot of new people, all of whom need to quickly access resources and processes for their job, including roadmaps, charts, employee policies, and team-specific technical documents. Onboarding these new members with Workflow Builder has reduced a 2-week experience to a real-time process where on their first day, people get an instant connection to their new team and all the information they need to hit the ground running in their new roles. And beyond the millions of workflows happening today in Slack, we're excited to announce the availability of our latest improvement, which extends workflow automation to your everyday tools inside and outside of Slack. Now builders will be able to connect their workflows to third-party integrations and to their company's internally developed applications to build more powerful processes for their teams and business partners. For example, a workflow in Slack for surveying team members could connect to Google Sheets for compiling the results, or a workflow for receiving product feedback could connect to Jira as the company's issue tracking system of record. This new functionality, which we call Workflow Steps for Apps, is available as of today. We have great partners including Datadog, PagerDuty, Poly, and Zapier, who are announcing steps with their apps today at Frontiers. You can find the partners' apps with steps listed in a special collection on the front page of Slack's app directory. If you want to learn more, tomorrow we have 3 sessions on Workflow Builder with steps for apps, including with customers Hearst Magazines and Manulife Financial, discussing the productivity benefits they gain from Workflow Builder. Stuart mentioned stories as one of the approaches we're exploring to save everyone a lot of time, create more flexibility, and improve a team's feeling of connection. Let me give you another peek behind the curtain at something else we're working on to create those opportunities to leap ahead, just like taking a photo of a receipt. One of the things we all miss from being in the office are the unplanned, spontaneous interactions that help us stay aligned or make quick decisions or spark new ideas. We believe it's possible to reimagine the role of voice communication in the workplace. Ad hoc and spontaneous instead of scheduled. Always available instead of something that stops and starts. It's an ongoing conversation over the course of the day. And, of course, we already have channels which give you the perfect place to kick off the conversation with just the right people. We're excited to share more about this in the not-too-distant future. Of course, you don't just work with people inside your organization. You also need to collaborate securely with people outside of your organization. Slack Connect extends channel-based messaging to everyone you work with, inside and outside your organization. This addresses an acute problem. A recent IDC report on the transition to remote work revealed that more than 40% of respondents say that the primary challenge in their day-to-day work is communicating and collaborating with external stakeholders. Email, text, or WhatsApp don't allow for complete conversations that bring the whole team up to speed. And security is another area in which email falls short, with companies losing billions of dollars each year to email scams, and with 90% of data breaches coming from phishing. So, we're excited to share more about the recently announced Slack Connect, the most secure and productive way for organizations to communicate and work together. For example, Zendesk uses Slack Connect to manage dozens of partner relationships. Zendesk's manager of technology alliances says that when they tried managing all their relationships by email, quote, "It may as well have been a carrier pigeon," unquote, they were using. But now with Slack Connect, they work in a channel on co-marketing, sponsorships, and joint solutions with the partners, which gives them a direct line of communication. This direct access lets them capitalize on new joint opportunities and quickly turn conversations into new sales opportunities. We hear stories like this every day from the 52,000 organizations who are already using Slack Connect to strengthen client relationships, provide top-tier enterprise support, manage supply chains, work quickly with vendors, and more. We have 3 sessions today with customers including Snowflake, Etsy, and Stripe, discussing how they use Slack Connect for working securely and closely with customers and partners, including to support product development, sales, and customer care. But first, we're excited to announce new ways we're making it even easier and more secure to work with people across organizations. And to share more about Slack Connect, we'll hear next from Marcel.
Thank you, Tamar. Hi, I'm Marcel Weeks. I lead our engineering team for Slack Connect. We believe Slack is the most secure way to collaborate across your business and with partners. Despite a shift to channel-based messaging internally, many businesses still rely on email for external communication, leaving their employees and organizations at risk of spam and phishing attacks. If you want the most secure collaboration environment, the first thing you can do is take your organization out of email and upgrade them to Slack. Unlike email, Slack Connect allows you to work securely because only trusted partners can send you messages and files. And we're excited to bring Slack's enterprise-grade security features and compliance standards to Slack Connect, which means your organization will be able to control its data and monitor external access. For example, we've recently extended our enterprise key management capability to Slack Connect. We've all seen the headlines where confidential emails make their way to the public. With the addition of EKM to Slack Connect, that's not a concern. If your organization uses EKM, all messages and files your team sends in Slack Connect are encrypted using your keys and rules, allowing you to stay in control, revoke your messages and files if needed, and meet your compliance requirements. And as part of our commitment to ensuring organizations connect only with trusted partners, select organizations will soon be eligible to be verified by Slack and identified by a verified checkmark in the Slack Connect invitation flow. This will give Slack administrators peace of mind that they're connecting to an authentic, trusted partner, something you can't scalably do with email today. And soon, admins will be able to designate certain partners as trusted for their organizations. This means your administrators can create an approved list of your trusted partners or customers, allowing future channels to be set up between organizations without the need for additional approvals. Streamlining this process allows your users to move more quickly and removes overhead for your admins. We're excited about these new capabilities, so you have the same assurances about the security of working with partners in Slack Connect as you do when working with your internal teammates in Slack. Our customers have also told us that just as they work more productively inside their organization by connecting their systems to Slack, they're looking for these same benefits when working with partners in Slack Connect. In addition to the benefits of channel-based messaging Tamar mentioned earlier, Slack Connect also lets you use integrations and workflows to accomplish more with your partners. For example, today you can easily move from conversations in Slack Connect into video calls, such as by sharing Zoom links in a channel. And by securely sharing files with partners through Slack Connect, you can ensure everyone on the project can access the information they need with appropriate controls on viewing and commenting. Other popular integrations among partners in Slack Connect include Zendesk, when 2 or more partnering organizations work together to resolve support issues, or Jira and GitHub, when companies work together on product development. And we're especially excited about a new integration by DocuSign. Now, partners can securely trade documents for review and signature, including right from where they're working in Slack Connect. For example, if you're closing a deal with a prospect, in Slack Connect, you could select the user from that company to receive the document envelope, and they'll be prompted with a direct message to complete the signing process. Bringing tools like these into Slack Connect gives companies the fastest and most secure way to move real work forward. But the new Slack Connect capability we're most excited about and thrilled to announce today is Slack Connect Direct Messages. Slack Connect DMs enable secure direct messaging across organizations. Share your private invite link with a trusted partner, customer, or vendor you work with, and they'll be able to send you direct messages from their own Slack organization. Customers have asked to be able to connect between organizations with direct messages since we first made it possible for companies to connect in channels. For example, if you're at the early stage of a project with a vendor and haven't set up a channel yet, but need to start coordinating with 1 or 2 team members at the vendor, you'll be able to quickly connect in Slack. Or if you're a customer success executive, you can create a direct line of communication with new leaders at your top customers. Just as Slack Connect is the fastest and most secure way to do real work with any partner, now Slack Connect Direct Messages will allow individuals in those trusted partnering companies to move faster and work directly with each other one-to-one. Admins will be able to decide who in their organization can initiate and accept Slack Connect DMs. For your organization, this might include customer-facing teams, executive team members, and teams that work regularly with outside vendors. We believe Slack Connect Direct Messages will revolutionize how people can work quickly and securely with trusted external collaborators. We can't wait to get this into your hands. As we get closer to launch, we'll be offering a handful of organizations early access. To express interest in joining our pre-release group, visit our website to get started. I've been pleased to share with you about some of our latest innovations in Slack Connect. We look forward to you trying these new capabilities and sharing with us your feedback about Slack Connect. And now, I'd like to introduce Christina Kosmowski, Slack's Vice President of Global Customer Success, for a discussion with Phil Weiser, Chief Technology Officer of Viacom CBS, about getting the most value for Slack from your organization.
Thanks, Marcel. Well, welcome, Phil. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
It's been a big year at Viacom CBS. Can you tell us a little bit about all that's happened this past year and what have been your biggest priorities for you and the Viacom CBS leadership team?
Well, as you had mentioned, Christina, that this was a year that started out with a massive integration of 2 great media companies with Viacom and CBS coming together. And then we had this thing called COVID come along. So just as we were starting to integrate the cultures of tens of thousands of our employees, we had to do that in a remote setting. So in terms of priorities, our biggest priority is to get the companies integrated fully and moving forward. But we're also in a very disruptive time for media, as obviously streaming is taking a big part of the market, and we're participating in that. So the integration of the company, the transformation to be truly a globally integrated cross-platform media company with streaming being a growing portion, producing more content than we've ever produced in our combined history. Bringing all of that together has meant that our culture really has to transform, and that's been a key driver of our technology team, is to facilitate moving faster, getting that transformation, and creating a new connected culture.
It's amazing. And earlier this year, you announced that you're bringing Slack to your teams at Viacom CBS. Can you talk a little bit about how that's helped meet your objective to connect and unify your people and your teams across Viacom CBS, especially in this new era of distributed workforce?
Certainly. Well, we were on a path to roll out Slack across the company at the end of last year as a mechanism to get our employees connected across both companies coming together. And as we moved into a remote setting, that just accelerated that strategy dramatically. And through our partnership with Slack, we did deploy Enterprise Grid across the company, and really did a very large marketing and adoption campaign. And before we went remote, we had a few thousand users across the company in pockets that had been there. We now have 13,000 active users as of yesterday across over 6,000 channels that we've been building up to 16,000 throughout the period that we've been remote. And we've got more work to do. So there's a great growth. But our goal is to really have adoption, make sure that our employees are feeling connected and productive. So we continue to push forward on an education campaign and an adoption campaign across the company.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You've also mentioned that a particular advantage is our deep integration with a wide range of services, including Office 365, such as Calendar, OneDrive, SharePoint, and then similarly G Suite as well. Can you tell us a little bit about how those types of integrations have helped the Viacom CBS people connect and be more productive?
Sure. As you can imagine, in a large corporation, we have hundreds of applications that are used across the employee base of the company. And some parts of our company are in G Suite, some on Office 365. Getting those aligned generally takes a long amount of time. We could be up to a year or more. Where Slack came in really as a neutral overlay to connect those communities together. And then we integrated the applications into that framework. We have about 700 apps that are now integrated into Slack. And that just supercharged and accelerated our ability, not just to have people communicating, but also knowledge sharing and information sharing in a way that was not possible when that information and knowledge was sitting in silos of those 700 applications. So really being that neutral connector across the company has been a great benefit to our merger and our integration.
It's great to hear. I also know you're an avid user of Slack Connect, so you can take some of these same collaboration and productivity to work securely with many of your external content and technology partners. So what have you seen as advantages of working with partners in Slack channels rather than email or other tools?
Oh, well, just the immediacy of the communication is obvious. And as a media production company, partnerships are key to our success. Our marketing team, as we're promoting, say, a new feature film or the greatest fall season, a television series that we're producing, the marketing team's been very effective working with partners through Slack Connect. And our productions themselves, a large portion of the content we produce is done in partnership with third parties. So we're now setting up workspaces when we're standing up a new production and enabling that real-time communication, particularly given in this setting, a large portion of that production team is now remote, much more than was ever historically the case, and they can be just as effective. And that gets amplified even more when that production is a live event. So whether it's the Video Music Awards, the Super Bowl, or the PGA, we're now using Slack Connect to work within our teams, but also with our partners at the PGA and the NFL and others to put those live productions on.
I love that. You've got a lot of smart, creative people who are working at Viacom CBS, and so I've realized your team has brought an incredible focus to automate the routine work that has to get done, but isn't the best use of the time and effort of these smart and creative folks. So can you tell us a little bit more about the tools like Workflow Builder and other custom integrations that have helped people be more productive while also still being responsive to important business opportunities happening across Viacom CBS?
Sure, of course. And I'll start with the tech team. Our technology team is now integrated all of our infrastructure globally as we're distributing hundreds of channels and delivering thousands of media assets on a regular basis. Our infrastructure is now wired into Slack through workflows that we've created to automate responses to incidents that may be happening and automating the way we communicate and escalate in that area. The other area is social media. We are the #1 social media provider, at least domestically, and that team is constantly amplifying messaging out in the market, talking with third parties and within themselves. So having that automated workflow to make sure they're aware of what's happening in social media and reacting to it has been really key. And one area that I've found most fascinating and seeing it firsthand is in our news division, where you can in real time see these teams accumulating facts, turning them into stories that we can then deliver to inform the public. And that's all running, in channels that have been created in our Slack environment. So it's really facilitated us moving faster in terms of getting content out and reacting much faster to what's happening in the market.
Well, finally, Phil, at Slack, we can't provide a great solution unless we have a close partnership with our customers so we can listen and understand their business imperatives and vision for the digital transformation. So can you tell us what you see as critical and how you work together with customer success and what makes our partnership most important?
I would have to say, to start out with this one, the fact that you care so much. I've rarely seen a partner that has truly taken such a strong interest in our success across the board. It's not just adoption of the technology, it's transformation of the culture. So I think that element of what you've built at Slack is really come through to us. And this first showed up as we were rolling out our campaign in the spring, and our partnership with our marketing team, our strategy team there was really key to getting a message that not only represented what capabilities we were delivering to the company, but also the culture that we wanted to create on the other side of this and to amplify with the rest of our management team. That's really been key. The other element is just training and knowledge and adoption. So we've got our Slack ambassadors that are working very closely every day with your team to make sure that we're getting the reactions to what's happening inside of our company addressed, and then building on those learnings in a very rapid way. And as I started out to say, we're in a very, very disruptive period for our industry and for our company. We need to move fast. We need to make sure we bring everyone along for that journey. And Slack's really been a key element to us getting out of the gate and now really running very quickly toward that goal.
Well, thank you so much for your advocacy, and I look forward to continuing to see all the great things Viacom CBS is going to do. And thank you for joining us today.
Of course, I'm really glad to be here and looking forward to a bright future together.
Thank you so much to all of our speakers, and thank you again for joining us. But the day is just beginning. Now we have a ton of breakout sessions kicking off in just about 5 minutes. You can join one of our 6 content tracks, or you can connect with us in the Slack Frontiers workspace, where you can connect with your fellow attendees and also with Slack employees to get your questions answered. Thank you so much for being with us, and enjoy the rest of the day.